Hi everyone, Elizabeth Whelan here, artist on Chappaquiddick Island up in Massachusetts. And I want to talk to you today about keeping your inventory of your artwork. And I know this is not at all everyone's favorite subject, but there's a really good reason for keeping track of your artwork. Actually, there are a number of them. So let's talk for a minute about what I mean by keeping an inventory. What I'm talking about is keeping records of your artwork, keeping whether it's a binder, a folder, recipe cards, 3x5 cards, or if you're doing it online, that somehow you're keeping track of the name of your work, the size, the medium, perhaps you are assigning an inventory number, etc., etc. So why do you need to do that? Well, really, if you're an amateur artist and just getting started, you don't need to do it yet. But the very first time that you send a piece of work to a show, even if it's a show of a group of friends or a local library or something like that, from the minute you let your artwork out of your hands into a show, you really do need to start keeping an inventory. So in those particular cases, I would say that is a good excuse to get the list out. When I got started, I had 8.5 by 11 sheets that I put in, clear plastic sleeves in a binder. And that was how I kept track of everything. I had that information I talked about, name of the piece, the size of the piece, what the medium was, and I assigned it an inventory number. And I also put information such as notes about it, like did anyone commission me to do it? Was it painted or drawn or whatever in a particular place? Anything like that that I thought might be useful for future knowledge or just for my own memory. And then I also had a little tiny sketch I put with it, because I was doing this by hand at the time, just a little tiny thumbnail of what it looked like, just to sort of associate. So after a few years of this, it started to get unwieldy. You know, I was over 70 pieces at that particular point, and I had to look for something else. So I did consider, first I went to a Word document and started keeping it all as a Word document. That was also, hard to find everything. Then I tried to move it to a spreadsheet, and, who wants to do all of this paperwork, right? You've got paintings to do. So I ended up going to an online system. There is a particular online, actually there are a number of online archive businesses that will sort of sell you a subscription. You can upload your information there, and you can keep all of this stuff as an inventory, and it allows you to generate reports as well. The particular outfit that I use allows me to, sort of assign the picture to a particular show or gallery, so that if I've got artwork out in a few different places, I've got a way to keep track of it. I can sort on those fields and get a little report of what's at this gallery and what's at that. So that's useful, but if you're not ready to make an investment of buying a subscription like that, if you haven't gotten to the point where your inventory is that big, you can also just do this with an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Doc spreadsheet, which allows you to list that information, what it is, size, material, any notes you might have about it, an inventory number, and its current location. And another thing you might want to add, another field, is date created. That can be useful if you're trying to keep track of what you're up to, and also if there's a price. If this is artwork for sale, what price it is. You can then extend that to also, if it gets sold, what price did it sell for, if it was something different. So there are lots of different ways to keep inventory. You don't want to get it so convoluted that you can't keep track of things. And the other half of keeping track of your inventory is to also make notes of some of that same information on the painting or artwork itself. So on the back of a piece of artwork, I just use a Sharpie on the edge of the canvas where it's turned over the stretcher bars. And I'll put the inventory number, I'll sign it again, I'll put the name of the piece and the size. I think that's it. Yeah, just 4 pieces of information. So there's enough there to relate that piece, if someone were to find it years from now, back to my inventory list. So That's one of the reasons you're doing this is for yourself, to keep track of your work, where it is. Sometimes it's just nice to look down and see all the work that you've done. I mean, it's a way to, sense of satisfaction just looking through and seeing all the work you've created. But the other reason is for future generations, people in the future who might come across your artwork. There are cases, for example, with really famous works of art by, people like Van Gogh, especially the Impressionists or anybody whose style is somewhat easy to duplicate, or nowadays we understand how they painted in such a way that they can be duplicated. These inventory lists are a way to stop forgeries from circulating, because if an has a really well-defined archive of material, an inventory list that really has, the notes have been taken very carefully, and an archivist would know, yes, this artist really did keep complete records. If this artwork that has suddenly appeared is not in here, particularly during certain years, where this artist was prolific, this painting says it was painted then, but I don't see it on the list. The archivist can then take a second look and find out if it's a forgery. So you could be helping some future archivist who has taken charge of your very famous and very valuable art collection, and you can be helping future forgeries not circulate. So there's a really long range goal. But in the meantime, there's a great deal of value to keeping track of your inventory and doing it now. Now, some of you who are listening to this are going to say, hey, I'm an amateur, I'm always going to be an amateur, I'm just not going to worry about it. That's fine. Some of you are like, okay, well, I'm becoming a professional artist and I've got time, I can start to come up with a system. And others of you have been painting and drawing and sculpting and such for years and are going to be like, oh my goodness, how do I even start making these records? And I would just say, start right now with what you're doing right now. When you have the time, add in, the old work from receipts, perhaps, from sales that you've made. And if you can't think of every last piece, don't sweat it. But do start now. Do start now from today with what the pieces are, even if you're doing it on 3x5 cards in a recipe box. Start today with that information, with an inventory number, marking your artwork with the same information, and at least you'll be organized going forward. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks so much for joining me here in the studio, and I look forward to talking again soon. Bye-bye.